my new channel, Sean the Tech Guy in the Villages. So yes, I just recently moved to the Villages in beautiful Central Florida here, and I bought a brand new home, just moved in mid-April, and I am starting a new channel down here in Florida for all the types of changes I'm going to be making to my brand new home. Lots of tech things, smart home things, even contractors coming in and doing particular services for me. So it'll be a lot of great information on this channel. This is my first video, which is going to be about making a custom TV console from IKEA components and putting them all together to make a professional looking piece of furniture. So that's what this video is about, but we'll have plenty of videos in the future. I did have a previous YouTube channel, actually it's still around, it's called Sean's Train Depot, so look that one up if you're into model trains. There was I had an extensive layout up north where I used to live, and also it has a lot of tech stuff on there also, so I did a lot of tech stuff on there, all kinds of reviews of things on that channel, so check that one out too. But this channel is specific about my journey of transforming my brand new home here in the Villages, and doing all kinds of things to make it even better than it is when I first moved into it. And so that's what this whole channel is going to be about. So if you love that kind of stuff, come on back to the channel. Now I will say that my videos are very long and detailed. I'm not one of those guys that does these quick shorts and kind of doesn't tell you anything. I've seen those videos before where you get on the video, you're looking at it, they show you what they're going to do, and then they show you the end point, and the whole middle is missing. They don't really show you how to do anything. They just sort of like get it out there as a quick video so people will watch it, and of course then they get revenue from it. And that's really all they're after, and they're not giving you any information. So if you can't stand long videos, then this is probably not the channel for you. This channel is about how to actually do something with detailed steps on how to do it and go through it and come up with an end product or an end solution to something in your home. So that's what we're going to do here. The other thing I'd like to say is that I do research everything really thoroughly before I do anything. So the products that you're going to see here in these videos, the contractors I hire, everything is going to be sort of top of the line. I don't like things that don't work. I don't like things where you get a sub, you got some service and it's not very good, right? You're paying a lot of money, things like that, and then you get an end product that is not good. So you won't find that here, because I do research things and make sure that everything I'm doing is the best I can get. So that's really what we're after here on this channel. So I hope you come back, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button if you do like it. On my other channel, I think I had like 18,000 subscribers, so obviously there were enough people that did like those types of videos. And I'm hoping down here in the Villages in Florida, there'll be some other people that will also like this type of content. And then we'll go through this together as we go through improving my brand new home. So that's what we're going to be doing. So today is about the TV console hack. I call it the IKEA hack. And basically we're going to be using IKEA components to create a custom piece of furniture. And you can see in the end, it looks fantastic when it's all finished. So if you're ready, let's jump into this video and get started. To make this console for the TV, a custom console using the IKEA hack, what we're going to do is we're going to use a couple of, you have to get a couple of supplies, obviously. So what we're using here, these cabinets that you see right here, which are IKEA section, it's Sektion, that's the name of their kitchen cabinet line. So they're section cabinets, and they are the cabinets that would normally go on top of a refrigerator. So obviously it's not a base cabinet or a wall cabinet. Well, it is a wall cabinet, but it's a wall cabinet that would go above a refrigerator. So it's the space that goes above the refrigerator. And they come in two sizes as far as the width go. You can get a 36-inch, which you see right here, and you can also get a 30-inch. So my combination that I'm going to make here for my TV console hack is going to be a 36-inch, a 30-inch, a 30-inch, and a 36-inch. And the reason we're doing that is because on the two end units, we're going to have big drawers, and on the 2 inner units there will be doors. But basically all you have to do is buy these cabinet, basically these frames, right? And then they'll come in flat packs, and then you just assemble them with the normal IKEA, instructions. So the little cams and pins and stuff like that, and you just assemble them into these 4 pieces. And so that's what you see right here. Now, as far as what you do inside those pieces, that is totally up to you. As you can see right here on mine, on the end units, I have drawer slides. But on the inner units, I have hinges. So you can have all doors going down here, you can have all drawers going down, whatever you want. And that's the best part of the IKEA hack, is that you can pretty much make whatever you want, and you can make whatever size you want. So suppose you don't need this big size like I have here, right? I have a huge TV, as you can see right here. So that's why I have such a long console. And I would never be able to buy this console. They don't make it in this length. And 2, I would have to have one custom made if I did want one in that length. And that would be incredibly expensive. And you're gonna see at the end here, when we're all done, how great this looks. And it looks like a custom piece of furniture when you're finished. The best part about this also is that you can pick whatever you want for the top and the door fronts. So they are obviously just IKEA kitchen cabinets. So you pick whatever cabinet fronts that you would like, and then you can pick some end panels and finish it off. And again, it'll look like a custom piece of furniture. Okay. Now the other thing you have to buy when you buy the cabinets is you have to buy a rail, because the way the IKEA system works is it hangs off the wall on a rail. So let me show you that. This is the rail you buy. It's a separate piece that you buy. And basically you can see it has a whole series of holes here. There's a special cam that they use in here that you screw your screw through, and then that's what holds it to the wall. Now the thing about it is your wall needs to be very close to flat. If it's wavy or is not flat, then you'll need to shim behind the support bar until it's completely flat going across. If it's not flat, when you hang these on the bar, they're going to be out of whack. And so in other words, one will be farther out than the other, whatever it may be. So you don't want to do that. You want to make sure your wall's close to flat. It doesn't have to be absolutely perfect, but it should be pretty close to flat. Now I have a brand new house here, so mine should be pretty close. But even brand new houses, the walls can be wavy. So, but so far when I had the level on the wall, it looked like it was pretty close. So I think I'm going to be able to get away with it. Maybe just a little washer behind one of them, okay? When you start screwing it down, if the bar is actually bending a little bit in or out, then you know you need to put a washer. But besides that, pretty simple. So what I've done on the wall, you can see here, is I just marked out my studs. I had a stud finder, so I know where they are exactly. And what I'll do is, just to make sure before I just start drilling holes in the wall and running into electrical wiring and things like that, is I will just take a very small nail and just tap where I'm going to put my screw and make sure that I actually do hit an actual stud. And then you can see right here, on my particular wall, there's a lot of studs here, and there's plenty of holes to choose from on the bar. And basically the way it works is, once you have your cabinets assembled, you're gonna see on the back here, there is a hook that's attached. And these basically hang on that bar. And that's how IKEA cabinets work. Now on the base cabinets, they have legs that support it on the floor. So in our particular case, because of the height that we're after, we're actually just going to use a couple of 2x4s underneath to create a gap. And so what that's going to do here is it's going to create this sort of gap underneath it to make it look like it's floating. And then there's a trim piece that will go on the front here underneath there to hide the 2x4. So we'll get to that last, obviously. But the first thing we have to do is get our bar attached to the wall. It comes in these, I believe these are 6 or 8 foot lengths, whatever it is. And you can obviously cut them down for the size you need, which I've already done. There's 2 pieces I'm going to need on my wall right here. And you can see I have everything marked out. So I'm just going to take a little nail, tap through, make sure I'm hitting a stud before I drill my screw my holes in. Now what I'm going to use for my screws are these in my particular case, I'm using 1.5-inch cabinet screws. So these are screws that would normally hold cabinets up against the wall. I'm using 1.5-inch number 8s, and the reason is because I don't need, you know, I've got just a tiny bit of the bracket and then 1/2 inch for the drywall, and there's plenty of meat there. I don't need anything really longer than that to hold this on. Plus the fact that on my particular case, even though it's hanging off the wall, it's going to have support underneath by those 2x4s, so there's really nothing really yanking on the wall in my case. What works is it comes with these little steel brackets, and what happens is they go into here, and then you put your screw through here, and that's what kind of holds it on there for these brackets. So they're meant to be in here so that you can put a screw head through it, and then it slides down over the shaft of the screw, and then you tighten it down, and this will hold it against the wall right here. So it comes with all these little brackets here, and you know, you've got some space in between these big holes, but this little bracket keeps the shaft of the screw tight against the slot right here. So it's a pretty simple system. It comes with instructions, so it should be pretty easy to mount onto the wall. Now obviously you can see right here, right now I have marked a level line that goes across the whole wall, so I know exactly where my bracket's going to be. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a screw sort of in the middle of each one, and then I can use a level to make sure it's perfectly level first before I put in the end screws. And then once I have the 2 bars up on the wall, I'll go across, make sure it's completely level, and once I'm sure of that, then I can put all the other screws in to fasten it to the wall. Push my cabinets against the wall just to see if my end points are correct, because this is the piece you have to make sure you don't overshoot. So in other words, you don't want the bracket sticking out past the end of the cabinet. However, you do have to make sure you have enough meat there so that the bracket right here on the end actually hooks onto the cabinet, so it can't be too short. You do have 3/4 of an inch here on the end here where the bracket is not, so you got 3/4 before the bracket starts. So you have a little bit to play with, and you can slide them left and right once you get the bar on there. But the key is to make sure you have enough meat on the bar. Now, even if half the bracket on the end points is holding on, that's good enough. But that's the key to the whole thing when you put your bracket across, is make sure that it's going end to end of your cabinet, right? Because this is not going wall to wall like kitchen cabinets would, right? We have an opening on the end here, a little gap. And so what I did is I pushed these in here. I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so what happens here is I measured on both ends to see that this gap right here between the cabinet and the wall is basically the same. Now, if it's an 1/8 inch off or something, nobody's ever going to see it or notice it, but I want it to be pretty close. And then I just wanted to verify that my tape lines right here for my endpoints were correct, and they are, so everything matches. So far so good, and I just have to get then the bracket attached to the wall. And like I said, I already have my line scribed right here for my height. So what I did is I put my cabinet, to make this easier on yourself rather than measuring, because floors can be wavy too, is I put my 2x4s underneath my cabinet to raise it up the height I wanted. And then I put the cabinet, and all I did is I took the bracket and put it down here and then pulled it up against as if it was hanging, and then I just ran a line across there. And then after I did that, I got out the level and made sure it was level going all the way down the wall, and that's the way it kind of works there. So, and the great part about these cabinets, because they are meant to go above the refrigerator, is they have these cutouts here for air ventilation, you know, so the fridge can vent the hot air up. So these all have these vents, which is great because there'll be electronic components inside these underneath the TV, and that will allow the air to flow through these. So these work in a couple different ways, you know. So, and that's why I picked these particular ones. And their height is perfect too. So when you're doing a TV console, TVs should never, ever be above you. In other words, whatever your seating position is, it should be at eye level with your seating position. people that mount TVs up on walls are making the biggest mistake, okay? First of all, the picture on the TV is not gonna be as good as if you have it at eye level. And the second thing is it's just neck strain and things like that. I don't know why people still mount TVs high up on walls over fireplaces, things like that. It's not a good thing to do. And from a video file perspective, if you're really all about the picture and everything like that, it's the worst thing you can do. Always put your TV at eye level. Now you can mount it on the wall, but just make sure it's eye level for whatever your seated position is. You can see I have my first one in here. You can kind of see how it works, right? So I have this right in the center of this longer one here, 7 foot, this one is, and that's what they come in, 7 foot, so just FYI. And then I'm gonna do another one here, so you can see I have a stud right here, and this one actually lines up perfectly. So again, you're putting them in like this, and then this will be against the top edge right here, and then the bolt, the cabinet screw just goes right into that stud right there. So basically I've got a stud here, here, here. There is one here, but that's right next to the electrical wiring right here. So I may skip that one. It's really not necessary because I got one here. And then when you come to an end point, if you don't have a stud, what you're going to want to do is put in a molly, right? You're going to put a butterfly behind it just to hold it to the wall because you don't want it flapping, right? So if you're not close to a stud like I am here, then you just need to make sure you do that because you'll want to make sure, you know, you can use an anchor in a drywall and just make sure it's anchored correctly on the end point right there. So, and it's always going to depend on where those hooks line up against the rail. So if the hook is lining up closer to the stud, you don't have to worry about it. But if the hook is lining up right on the end here and you have no support, that's a problem. So make sure you're supported correctly across the entire bar. Okay, so I'm going to get these all mounted here and then we'll come back. So I have my, this one's pretty close to this end, and I think where the brackets are going to line up, this is going to be really a good spot right here. I have one here. There is a stud right here, but this is so hard and tight against, you don't really need to put one here, and I'm not going to. Here's the thing, everybody does overkill when it comes to screws, and you just don't need that many. Cabinet screws are meant for exactly what they are. They go into studs, and they're meant to hold up cabinets. So if you think about your kitchen cabinets with dishes and everything else and the weight and how the cabinet screws are holding that in, you can see, like for my application here, I don't need a lot of screws. So in this particular case, we've got 4 going across. That's actually plenty. Now, the bracket in the end here is right here, and there is nothing holding this on. So just because you have a little movement here, I'm gonna put a, dolly in here, right, and pull this in tight. Not for support as much as, like, I don't want the cabinet like to be this way against the wall, right? I don't want the end sticking out a little farther on this side because this bracket is not tight against the wall. So we're gonna put one right there in this particular case. But on the other end, we don't need it because the bracket's, I think, somewhere around here. So this is just fine the way it is. And actually this is super tight against the wall here. So now the other thing is there is a little dip in the wall right here. I can see it like when I tightened it down. And so because of that, when we put the cabinets on, you're gonna see basically if they line up or not. And if you can't get them to line up, that means I'll have to take this, loosen this up and put a washer behind it to just make sure this is leveled out. So, and that's the key to the whole thing. It's the hardest part because, you know, very few walls in the world are level, or straight, I should say. So basically you just gotta make sure you get this straight across and then your cabinets will line up. But before you go too crazy with it, what you should do is take your cabinets, hang them on the bracket, and then see if you can get them to line up. Because there is a little bit of leeway and give to it so that you can actually get them to line up even if the wall is a little bit off, okay? So let me get my second bracket over here all mounted up and then we'll show you how they hang on the wall. So there's my completed rail going across. This little gap doesn't matter because the brackets are on both sides of here. So this lines up with all the studs. So there's 4 on this one. I think there's 4 or 5 on the other one. So and it's all level going across. So perfect, everything's ready to go. And you can see I've hung 2 of them already here on the bracket. You can see there's a raised gap underneath there, which is perfect. And everything is perfect horizontally as far as level goes. But if you look at this side, you can see the level on this one is way off, right? You can see that, right? Would have to come up almost that much. And the reason is because the way IKEA cabinets work are, when they hang off the actual bracket here at the bottom, IKEA has this pad that sticks out. And so what happens is when it's on the wall, on the normal cabinet, once it's on the rail, the dimensions match up so that this pad rests against the drywall. And that's what holds the bottom of the cabinet when it's actually hung on the wall. Our problem is that we have a baseboard in the way down here. So instead of like touching the drywall, it's actually touching the baseboard, which is pushing the bottom out a little more. So in our particular case, we're gonna have to remove these pads, which are just 2 little nails right here. They just pry right off, no big deal. And then we'll find out once we put our 2x4s underneath to support it, if we need any more support in the back, which I don't think we're going to need. That will take that gap away, and then the 2x4s will support the bottom front. So I took the 2 pads off this one, I hung it back up, and I'm gonna put the level on here. And actually, this is perfect. So it just happens to be that if you look down there where the baseboard and the cabinet meet, right, it just happens to be that the baseboard just by accident, you know, just by luck, happens to be the right thickness, and it levels it out. So yeah, with the support underneath it, that's it. It's ready to go. So now all I have to do is get all 4 of these hung on the wall, and then what we're going to do is screw them together. So right here between them, we're going to screw them together. And then once they're all as one big unit, then we can put the supports underneath the front. So there we have everything hung. Everything's lining up actually really well. So once I screw them all together, they'll be perfectly aligned. So I think we're good there. So we got lucky the wall wasn't too out of square. But one thing you need to do is on each end, like if you're doing it like I am in an alcove like here, on the ends, I want to make sure this is centered in the alcove. So right now it's about 5 inches here. At the other end down here, it's about 4.5. Now, you want to move these before you bolt them together, because even now, separated by themselves, they're very hard to slide left and right. You have to sort of lift them up and move them. So you want to make sure you do that, because once they're bolted together, you will not be able to move these across the bar. You think you would be able to, but they don't slide. There's too much friction and weight and everything else. So first get them all centered, and then once you have it all centered, then we can start screwing them together and bolting them together. Now that I've got it, like, I think there's maybe 1/8 difference or 16th between the 2 sides as far as the distance here. So that's good enough, right? Nobody's ever gonna see that or notice that. And so now we're ready to screw them together. And if you look on the cabinets, right, there's all kinds of holes running down here for the pegs for the shelves and stuff. So as long as you know where you're going to put your stuff, then, you know, make sure you don't use screw holes that are reserved for either the hinges or in this case the slides, right? But once you know that, then any of these other holes are good, and you can run a wood screw through this into the other side. Just make sure it's not too long and it doesn't run out. And then you can basically bolt these together. So what you're going to want to do is shim these and get a clamp these together so all the edges, basically like these 2, you see they're a little off right here. You want to make sure these are perfectly aligned straight across the top, and on the front here to make sure that these edges here all line up also, and clamp them and then screw them together. And you got tons of screw holes to choose from, so you should have no problem screwing this stuff together. So you can see here I've got these 2 screwed together. I use these big screws right here. I have 3 of them on the front and 3 of them on the back. One is underneath this slide right here. And you can see the top is completely lined up. Front is completely flush all the way down to the bottom. So we're all set to go there. Now, what you want to do is once you have that in, you want to lock your track to the cabinet. And what you do is you use these little fasteners, and they have like a little hook in the back. And basically all you do is you go up to your bracket and you put the, you can see it's sort of a half moon type of thing. So the half moon goes down below in the bottom like that. You get a screwdriver and you turn it, and it is now locked, right? So unlocked, locked. This is now, track is now locked on here. It cannot move at all. And that's all you do. So you're gonna do that for all four, or excuse me, all two per cabinet. So on each side, once you have it all lined up. Don't lock it in until you have everything lined up, and then you'll be all set to go. So there we go. We have it all. Everything is bolted together now. So all the seams are perfectly aligned. Now right here on this cabinet right here, this was a little farther back and I couldn't pull it out. So what you do is right where your mounting screw is, you just back it off just a little bit so you can get the bracket to come a little bit away from the wall. So you can see there's a tiny bit of a gap there because the wall curves right here. And so, but again, nothing's gonna pull out. And once it was all lined up, then I tightened the screw back up a little bit to make it tight so it was snug and it's not loose. So this little plate right here is the main thing. This plate needs to be tight against the rail, and you should not be able to move that little plate. And as long as that's that way, you're good to go. So you can see here, everything looks really good. It's all lined up, and temporarily I just have some stuff underneath it, but there's actually a little more space right here. You can see I can move the 2x4s. So we can shim those because we want to make sure it's completely level both directions. And by putting those underneath there, it just gives us a little extra support, right? So I can put those underneath the front, just behind where we're gonna put the trim piece. And that's pretty much it. Now, one thing also you'll notice on these cabinets right here is there's a walnut piece of trim going across here. That doesn't come with the cabinets by default. So that's part of the hack, which is you can go on Amazon and you can buy rolls of wood veneer that have an adhesive backing, and all you do is you cut it, you lay it on there, and you use a hot iron and you just run over it, and the adhesive will melt behind it and adhere to the cabinet. And the reason I did that is so that when the cabinet doors are closed, you don't see the white between here. Now, if you're going to use white cabinet doors, you don't have to do this, obviously, right? Because white and white. But all IKEA base cabinets come in white. And if you're using any other kind of color, like mine is going to be walnut. So mine are walnut doors and drawers. And so you see the gap between them will show the white. Now, it doesn't look bad, but I want it to look like a real piece of custom furniture. So all I did is I got some pieces of 3/4 inch wood veneer, walnut. I didn't have to finish it, came exactly as you see, and you just cut it and iron it on and you're all set to go. And so that's all you have to do if you're using a darker finish, okay? So now we have all that set up. Our next step is actually to put the supports that we want to use underneath. Now, they're not required technically, but because there's gonna be a big giant TV up here sitting on here, a pretty heavy top that goes on this, we're going to just give it some extra support. And what we're gonna do is we just put some soft felt pads underneath the 2x4 so it doesn't scratch the floor. And then we're gonna put those underneath there and then just use shims to tighten it up. And then we're gonna make sure that it's level horizontally and then also going front to back. And then once that's all set, we're ready to put the top on. So let me get this all done, and then we'll come back and show you what top we're gonna use. Guys, so we got it all finished here. So everything is mounted, screwed together. And then underneath here, you can see we've got some 2x4s that we've put underneath here, as you can see. And I'm basically just crossing the joints where the two cabinets meet. So there's 1, 2, 3 of them. And then I also have them on the two ends. So that just gives it additional support. You'll be able to walk across the top of this thing. That's how strong it'll be. Now you won't see that because if you look here, there's another little short piece of 2x4 that I've screwed to the cabinet. And what happens is this little trim piece right here will go here, and then just a little finish nail will go right there. And there'll be the smallest gap between it and the floor that'll make a nice clean edge, because this is the finished edge right here. This is the cut edge. So this comes in, it's basically a kind of a plastic with a walnut finish on it, and it will be easily cut. You just cut it with a jigsaw for whatever height you need. I forget, it's the normal baseboard trim that goes underneath the kitchen cabinet, but this will finish that off and hide all the stuff underneath there when we're done, okay? So our next step is to put the top on. Now, as far as the top goes, totally up to you guys, whatever you want to use, right? And that's the best part of a hack, right? You can make whatever you want. Now I'm gonna have a very nice dark walnut on the front, and I decided to do a two-tone to make this really high-end looking, and I'm going to do a light top. And so what I did is I went down to Home Depot and I just bought 2 butcher block countertops, and all I did was put a clear coat of polyurethane on them, no stain. So I'm gonna have sort of a light top with a dark bottom, okay? And they came in, I think, 6-foot lengths, and you just cut them down to whatever you need. And there will be a seam, but you'll see when we're finished with it, the seam is not only not noticeable, but it doesn't really matter, okay? Because they're nice, tight fitting. Now, the nice part about using a thick piece of top like a butcher block is that if there's any variations in your top here as you're going down the wall just a little bit, it doesn't matter because it's a stiff piece of wood that is not going to bend. And in the end, it's all going to be tight against the cabinet. So let me go grab those and I'll show you how they look. Now, before you put the tabletop on, you want to make sure that the entire top is clean. Get rid of any debris, little pieces of wood, whatever it may be, because you don't want that sandwiched in between, because that won't lay flat if you do it that way, okay? So clean off your top here, and then I'll lay down the tabletops and you can see what these look like. There it is. So this is a 1.5-inch thick butcher block top that I have just put some great polyurethane on. Just a clear sort of a satin polyurethane. So this is all, I finished all this, and you don't need to see that in the video because that's just finishing wood. And then this seam here will sort of disappear once it all lines up, right? This will be evened out to make sure it's completely even across here, flush. So if I need to shim or whatever I need to do, pull it down with basically a screw, and then tighten it up. Now you will see this little tiny seam here all the time. That's fine. Nobody's ever going to see it or notice it, and it looks fantastic, right? And it looks like a custom-made piece of furniture. So when we get the walnut fronts on here and everything, this thing is going to look fantastic. Now the other thing I did is I drilled 2 holes, 2 big, I think I forget if they're 3 or 4 inch, but big holes in the back here. And this is where all the plugs, cables, and cords will run down from the TV down into the components that are going to be inside here. So I just did one on each side so that I could run it and have plenty of room to run lots of cables and stuff like that up to the TV. And that's pretty much it. And then because this is so long, it gives me a choice of putting speakers on each end and things like that. So let me get the tabletop all fastened permanently to the cabinets here. And then our last step before we put the shelves in the fronts is the end pieces. So even though my console here fits pretty close inside my alcove, you can, if you're coming around the corner, see the white ends, right? So because the whole thing will be walnut, we don't want to see those white ends. And just like the kitchen cabinet system, like if you were putting in a kitchen, there are end panels that you put on top of the cabinets to trim it out. And so we have 2 walnut end panels that we're going to use here. And all we really have to do is line them up and then just screw them from the inside here through the cabinet to the panel, and that's what holds it on. Very simple. So let me go get those 2 end panels. All right, so here we go. You can see the side panel now is right here. and I've got it all attached. It's just 4 simple screws, goes through here. Just make sure they don't go through the outside here so they're not too long. Make sure you get the right size length. 1 at the bottom and then 1 there and 1 there, so 4, and that holds on the panel. And you can see the way I decided to do it is I left a little reveal here of the wood so that when the doors close, they'll pretty much be close to flush, right? So, and that's kind of the way I did it. So now all we have to do is get the tops lined up, centered on here, and then from the bottom up here, we're just gonna put some screws to hold it on and tighten it all down. So let me get that done and we'll come back. So when you go to line up your tabletop, obviously the first thing is you're gonna wanna make sure these edges are even on the end here, right? So overhangs. And then in the middle here, you can see there's a gap, it widens and then it gets skinnier up front. And that's because the wall is not straight, right? The tabletop is completely square, but the wall is not. And so because of that, you just have to move it out a little bit, pull it out from the wall a little bit, and there'll be a little bit bigger gap in certain places and smaller gap, but that's okay, because nobody's gonna see the back of it, right? We're just interested in making sure the front is completely flush and lined up, and then this seam is as tight as possible, and that's what we're after. So really, you have to get it in position first, check all the ends back and forth until you finally are in the final position. Then you wanna get some clamps and clamp it down before you try to run screws in, because it's going to move when you try to put your screws in. So you've got to clamp it down. And so in this particular case, I'm going to need 4 clamps, 2 on each side, to clamp it down to keep it in place once I think I have it in the correct position. And you can see this line here should really line up with the seam that's going down here if everything is good. So let me get it in position. I'm going to get my clamps and then I'll show you before I actually run the screws in. We're almost home here, so I've got the tabletop all mounted. You can see nice and even here. You can run your hands across, no seam, right? Same thing on the front here. Everything is all lined up, right? And it's permanently mounted there. But you can see at the end there, it's really tight against the wall, and then as it comes into the middle, it gets a little bit of a gap there, and just sort of goes back that way. So, but nothing that looks bad. The only thing I'll have to do is on the ends here, because this is a cut end right here, this needs to be just finished off, right? Because if you look at it from, as you're coming around the corner, you can see an unfinished end there. So, but besides that, everything looks fantastic. So now we're gonna put the shelves in on the 2 center ones, because those have a shelf. And then we are going to put the drawers in first, and then you'll kind of see what it looks like. All right guys, there it is, almost finished. We just have to put the little trim piece on the bottom where it sort of insets and is raised up right there. So right now you can see the little 2x4s in there, but that will just tack on there. So I'll just use a quick, a very small brad nail, all right, and a nail gun, just like 4 nails, and that's all it requires to hold it on, and it'll look fantastic. So, but if you look at it, right, it looks like a custom piece of furniture. It looks really, really good, as if I had it custom made. And like I said, you can make this in any size you want to. And the best part about it is, like, look at these, lots of storage here for these drawers right here. IKEA drawers are metal, hard wood bottoms, and then has a little glass on the sides here you can get if you want to fill that in. And they're all soft close too, so. And then on the inner part here, it's just doors that open up, okay? And then the electronic components will go down there, and that's pretty much it. And I forgot if I mentioned this earlier in the video, but I left the back off of the individual boxes because I want to be able to pass wires back there, back and forth and everything. So I'll be able to do any of that between any of the components. And then of course I have the 2 holes that I drilled on the top here, and that's pretty much it. So all I have to do is put that trim piece on and then finish this little edge right here, which is a raw edge right there at the end of the butcher block. And we are all set. And that is how you do an IKEA hack for your TV console. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed that video of my TV console hack with using IKEA parts. You can see it looks fantastic. I've got my TV there, I got my Sonos speakers on the end there, so everything fits. And you can make any combination or style that you want to, which is what's so great about it. And it won't cost you an arm and a leg. So, custom piece of furniture like this, if I had this made, this size and everything else probably would be at least $5,000 to $8,000 from a custom furniture maker. Each of these cabinets was maybe $40 each for the cabinets. Now, depending on the door fronts and drawers and everything, or what your combination is, they can vary in price greatly, right? I think these doors were, they might have been $40 each. The drawer fronts were a little more expensive. You do have to buy the slides, the hinges, and all that stuff, so it does add up. But I think the entire cost with the butcher block and everything else was somewhere around $700 to $800. $700 to $800 for a great looking piece of furniture that you make to your own specifications, as opposed to $5,000 to $8,000 for a custom piece of furniture that you can never change if you get it. Once you've got it there, it's there, right? So this is so much better. I can actually disassemble this, take this apart, move it to any other house if I wanted to. Like, it has a lot of advantages and it looks fantastic, and it has an incredible amount of storage on this particular unit. So if you like these kind of videos, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button to come back. So this is my first video in the Villages, and there'll be many more coming because there's a whole bunch of stuff I want to do to my house here. So you'll see all that stuff happen, but this was the first thing because I needed to get this up and running so I could get the TV mount up on the stand and everything else. So that's why we started with this one, but there's some great videos coming, including some videos of some contractors that will be coming in to do work like the garage floor and things like that. And I will tell you that the one thing I do is I research very thoroughly before I decide to do something. So if you're watching these videos, I'm going to tell you, like, this is probably, you know, when I'm doing something, it's the best product out there. Usually when I'm doing it, because I don't like things that don't work. I research it thoroughly to make sure that I'm getting what I want, and in the end, if you watch these videos, I guarantee you that these products that I'm using, or services if it's a contractor, are some of the top services out there. So make sure you come back and view the other videos. This video was a little bit shaky because I couldn't find my tripod because of the move. I just moved in, there's still boxes everywhere, so I couldn't find my tripod, so it's a little shaky, so just excuse it on that one. But you'll get the gist of what you need to do in this video, obviously, when you watch the whole thing. So apologize for that one, but in the future they'll be a little more steady and you won't have to see all that jerking around in the video. But alright guys, that's going to be it for today. Again, I hope you enjoyed this video and it helps you in the future, and come back to see more videos. Peace guys.